Okay, today we're going to glue our Collagraph plates together. So what's super important about Collagraph plates is that you use plenty of glue. And you're going to start with the background and work your way to the foreground. So I've just cut out some things really quickly here that I'm going to glue on. Have a couple tips about gluing. You want to use plenty of glue, but you also want the gluing to be really smooth. If it's not smooth, you will end up with sort of bulges that will affect your printing. So what I suggest is that you grab a small piece of mat board, and once you put the glue on, you're just going to go back and forth over the glue and really smooth it out and make sure it's everywhere that you're wanting to glue, where you're wanting to glue on your objects. So I'm going to put down this sort of piece of fabric, lace, push it down, make sure that it's really solidly glued down. And if you notice, it's coming off the edges a little bit here, but that's totally fine because you can trim that off later. So I'm just going to leave it coming off the edges for now. And then I'm going to glue this piece of ripped cardboard just right on top of it. With this one, I might just put glue on the back of my piece of cardboard. And again, kind of smear it with your piece of mat board to make sure it's all the way to the edges. Because if you have edges sticking up, it's going to be a problem when you go to ink it. Place that there. Okay, so I'm just going to continue kind of layering, and I'm moving quite quick. You're going to want to go a little bit slower, make sure your placement of your things is just the way that you want it, and play around with your layers before you actually glue things down. And anywhere that you have sort of smooth mat board showing, anywhere that you don't put a texture, is just it's gonna take less ink. So when you print it, it will just be usually lighter than the places that have texture. So you want to make sure that you're getting plenty of texture, but you can leave areas of plain mat board if that's what you're needing for your image. If you need some contrast, because you don't want all texture, because then it won't show up. So you want to have a good mix of textured areas and sort of more smooth areas. And that way your texture will really show up. So keep going back and really pushing down what you've already glued on, because like I say, if you have edges or corners that are sticking up, that's going to be a problem when you go to ink your plate, because they'll kind of rip and tear. So keep pushing. So that's sort of my background, and now I want to add some elements to the foreground. So I've cut out these, I don't know what they are, flowery type onion things. And I'm just going to glue those on sort of as a foreground element. And again, I'm moving really fast for the sake of the video, but you're going to want to really place these ahead of time and make sure that your composition is looking really good before you glue things down. And I have another one of these. Let's see. Sort of place that up here. And again, keep going back and pushing things down as you go. Okay, and I like the idea of these being sort of flowers in the foreground, so I want to try and make a little bit of a stem for these. I have some kind of netting that I'm gonna put a bead of glue and then kind of just see if I can twist this into that bead of glue. And again, you can trim your edges later, so you don't need to worry about getting it perfectly to the edge of your plate. Okay. And I really like the idea of using some string. String makes a really great line, a little bit of a harder line. And so I'm going to add in some string and see if I can finish up the rest of my plate. And then you will see it on the other side when I'm inking it. Just like I say, make sure that you really glue down all the tips of things. And oh, one other thing, you can also just use beads of glue. So for example, if I just put some dots of glue, those will show up as raised items. You can do stripes with glue, you could do swirls. Maybe we'll put a swirl up here in the corner. You can do dots, whatever you want, but it will show up when you print. Okay?